Growth Pod is brought to you by Genero, a leading growth agency in the Nordics. We interview marketing experts, business leaders, and entrepreneurs to uncover the stories and strategies behind profitable growth.
Monika, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I want to get started, we've got a lot of things to cover. But before we get there, maybe the first, it would be good to give people kind of a sense of what Enfuce is, because that's obviously what you're doing right now and what you're most well known for.
Yep.
But I find that for the lay person, Fintech is kind of it's a very big thing. So it took me a while, and I'm not sure I fully understand exactly where you kind of fit into the landscape. So if you could explain, like, what is Enfuce? What are you guys doing? And maybe what was the insight that led you to start this after having worked for like a long time in payments and banking?
Yeah, good question. Fintech is an abbreviation, at least the OG meaning was financial technology. Then today it means, I don't even understand what it means.
Anything. Yeah.
It depends, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it, especially some years ago, it was so hyped, so anything was labeled. Like it's with AI now. If you put AI, the valuation goes up.
Yeah.
I think 3, 4, 5 years ago, if you put Fintech, the valuation went up. But we are like OG, so we are financial technology, but we are the newcomers, even though we're pretty old now, because it's 9 years in, but it's because we were the first one in the world to put the issuing of money, so giving out money, the enablement of doing payments, digital payments, and we put it in public cloud. And the reason why we did public cloud was because I wanted to build a company that enables payments in a way that we enable the issuance of money better, faster, and globally scalable. And you know, better and faster, that's tech and ways of working, but then globally scalable needed the infrastructure, so the cloud infrastructure instead of the old school on-prem. But then, of course, understanding that cloud is physical data centers, but it's with someone who knows that as their core business, and hence we chose AWS back in the days, and we have a very strong collaboration with them still. And so what we do is, like, we have companies that give out cards, and then it depends on in what format. You can have Apple Pay, Google Pay, physical cards, etc. But for different use cases. So banks wanting to give out debit or credit cards, we do that. We do, for example, for the Finnish government, we enable disbursements cards, so the refugee cards, social benefits cards, etc. Employee benefits cards for Swile, for example, or EPAS in Sweden. We do fleet and mobility cards. So a lot of variety, but in the end there's a ledger that holds the funds. The funds can be prepaid or it can be a credit. And then that ledger account needs a user interface, and that can be anything that can connect to it. And we hold that whole infrastructure.
Yeah.
So we can enable payments globally.
Okay. That was a good explanation. I'm guessing Pleo is one of your customers?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's in one of our companies we use that. So
yes.
I'm kind of familiar from that
Cool.
That sense. But what was it that led you to? Was that the original vision with Enfuce to do what you just described?
Yes. We just do more of it.
So what was the insight then? Because I feel like that's quite rare, isn't it? That you have a vision that stays the same from founding of the company until a much bigger scale later, 9 years later. What was the kind of insight that led you to start Enfuce?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think for me, it's very easy. And that's why I sometimes have problem with understanding other people about this pivoting to the right and left. But for me, I'm an old banker who used to be also in the telco industry, so building infrastructure. And I was so sick and tired of the processors, so the types of players that we became in the end, because they were so slow, everything cost so much money, and everything was so hard. And being part of building multiple banks, for example, in Finland, I was part of building S-Bank from scratch. Like, yeah, it's shitloads of work, but it's not rocket science. And I don't even think rocket science is that particularly hard, especially since my cousin actually does it and she's very smart, but just like it's a lot of things that needs to happen in a systematic way. That's the same with payments. There's a lot of regulation and there's a lot of things. So why I founded Enfuce was that I was working at a other processor, building the infrastructure, and then I was done with that because I wanted to scale and they didn't. And then I took a job at Aktia Bank, which is the Finnish bank, and going through the pain of working with the usual suspects, so the legacy providers, I was like, for fuck's sake, how hard can this be? It's not that hard. And then an opportunity presented itself where I was asked that if I would want to become a CEO and build a new payment company. And I was like, no, been there, done that, I don't want to do it. But how are you going to run the infrastructure? And then they were like, oh, we're in an RFP and we're going to, ask Nexi, Nets, CGI, Tietoevry. I was like, is it okay if I make a proposal? And then because I was like, I know there's a better way. And that was the problem we went out to solve. And we were lucky enough to land that customer, win that deal. And with that, we were able to really focus on building the infrastructure we have, meaning like we wanted to build it in a way that it's never down. So like high availability, no limitation on scaling on volumes, no global restrictions from an infrastructure perspective. There's a lot of regulation and stuff, but like from a technical perspective. And that's what we started to do. And then I remember when I called my former colleagues and then chief architects and co-founders, and they were like, yeah, we should go cloud. And I was like, 2016 cloud, no bank has and no one has ever put anything critical, some HR systems or stuff like, but nothing critical like payments in a public cloud. And they were like, but that's the only way to scale globally. And then I was like, yeah, and we don't actually have any money because it used to cost millions to buy on-prem. And that's when we started negotiating with AWS and Microsoft, because Azure didn't exist at that time yet as a de facto product. And then AWS had been around for 10 years, and we were like, or the guys were like, this is really hardcore shit, like this could really work. And then that's what we started to do, and that's what we still do. And now we just do more of it. So we started off by building that it can do global.
Yeah.
But now we're actually there. So I think that's the funny thing, that the infrastructure is something that I'm really proud of. There's a lot of stuff that I'm really proud of, but it's funny that has always been really good. And then I also think that the whole mindset of like once you deploy something, it becomes legacy. So all the time having this drive to make it better, I think that's a really key factor in why we are where we are and why we are coming for the legacy providers.
That's very good. So were you guys the first then to put like a payment solution on the cloud?
Yeah, in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was not that long ago. But that leads to kind of like a follow-up question, which is like payments and finance is very conservative for understandable reasons.
Yes.
So, okay, one thing is just building the tech side, and like you explained, it's not rocket science. It's doing hard things, but in a systematic fashion. But then there's the other piece, which is convincing people to trust you.
Yes.
How did you go about doing that?
That's the harder part, and I do think that background and age plays a part in it. So would I have succeeded the way we have succeeded if I would have done this 10 years earlier?
Yeah.
I don't think so. And then I don't look at where tech was and blah, blah, blah. But like if we just put like me 10 years younger, I was 41 when we started Enfuce, 42. And I had already been building multiple banks, like doing complex stuff. I had already in the late 90s, early 2000s been living the dot-com boom and the crash in the telco industry and the infrastructure. That gave me credibility, not just because it gave me credibility in the CV, but it gave me credibility. I knew what I was talking about. And the people I started building Enfuce with, I had worked with them for many years, which was also like, I knew we knew what we were talking about. I think my biggest challenge with the closest of my co-founders has been that sometimes they don't understand how good they are.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, because I remember to Niklas and William, I was like, for fuck's sake, guys, you're the best in the world. Because no one else has done it, and we've succeeded, AKA, you're the best. So it's funny, but that's probably one of the challenges, like really making sure, but not in an arrogant way, but like humble in wanting to learn more, but also realizing like, because when you go and sell to a bank, whose biggest risk is their reputation, and I think it was Warren Buffett who said that reputation, it takes 37 years to build and 37 minutes to lose. And I think that's exactly it. So for banks, choosing a challenger was the biggest challenge. And it was funny enough that I didn't realize that in the early days, because then we maybe wouldn't have started.
Yeah.
Because our first customers were big corporations, and we're like, yeah, fuck yeah. And then we started like selling, and then it was like, every bank was like, oh my God, yes, come and talk to us. And we started meetings and explain, and we're, oh, interesting. And then like, okay, so should we do something? No, we can't do it. Like, but it's really interesting. And now, let's say 7-8 years in, we started like, I think one of the key customers in really changing the narrative on the banking side was that we were able to land in Iceland, Kvika Bank, and then SEB embedded in Sweden. So really showcasing. But before we could do that, we needed to have ST1, we needed to have OKQ8, we needed to have Pleo, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned there is like, it's really difficult if you don't have the experience, the connections, you know how the banks think, and also, like you said, I mean, the confidence that comes from knowing what you know.
Yes,
that's huge.
Yeah, I do think so, which also means that for anyone, I always say it's never too early and it's never too late to be a founder.
Yeah.
And don't think about if you fail. I think the thing in Finland, we talk too much about failure as a bad thing, and that's why I don't usually use that word, because it's so stigmatized with something really bad and shameful. But I think it's a learning process. And looking at myself, this was my second company. So I started in 2006. Before I went in, like the reason why I started building S-Bank or was had that opportunity was because I had founded a company where I did consulting, and we were trying to consult, and I went into S-Group, S-Bank project with a test manager, and the guy we had sold to the bank, he was pretty shit apparently. So then I met the CIO of S-Group, and he was like, you know, Monika, this isn't working. And I was like, but isn't that hard? Like these things. And he was like, okay, good. Then you come instead of him. And I was like, yeah, of course. And that's been really a key thing, because I learned the hard way so much during that project. And I was so deep into everything, which means that now when I'm also very sales driven, I can really have that discussion. And we can really have those discussions with our customers and showcase the strength. And it's been really important.
So kind of going back to what you said there about, I mean, it makes so much sense that if you have that domain expertise, you know what the problems are, you know there's a better way, that you start a company and do that.
Yes.
But obviously it's not that common. So what was it that made you become a founder? And do you think that's something that, you know, you could teach, or does it come from your background, the way you grew up, your kind of early experiences? Where do you think it comes from?
I think it's a combination of everything. I do think that you should solve a problem. Like, I know that some people just want to be a founder or entrepreneur. Like that I don't even understand. Like entrepreneur life, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be an entrepreneur. And my question would be, okay, but what does that mean? Because what it means is hard work, sacrifice. And did I say hard work? And did I say sacrifice? So nothing big ever came easy. So you will have to be systematic and work. So I don't know how to answer that question, but I talk to a lot of people in different ages. Like I talk about entrepreneurship also from a younger generation. So from like high schoolers to uni students, etc. And I think that the mindset is the key. Like if you have a mindset of wanting to solve things, I think that is critical. And then how to be a founder, it's very hard work.
Yeah.
But it's a lifestyle. I think it's a lifestyle in the end of the day.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, if you just pursue being a founder because you like the title or the status or whatever you think it is, you're not gonna. You have to like the actual process,
yes.
the work.
Yeah, you need to like the pain.
That's a good. Was it like Elon Musk or someone who said that, talked about starting a company is like chewing glass or something like that and staring into the abyss?
Yeah, I think he's a psycho though, but that's kind of when shit goes too far.
Yeah.
And he should probably be on other kind of medication than what he uses. But yes, I would say it's enjoying the pain in a way. Like I don't want to like it's not horrible, but I know that people talk about this work-life balance, especially in the Nordics, work-life balance. I don't understand what that even means. For me, it's a lifestyle choice, and there is seldom balance. I have like a bit of flu left because I started off the year, and I often end the year with telling to Denise like, oh my God, it was so horrible. This was the worst year ever. And then this year was like in February, I was like, oh my God, this is the worst year ever. And she's like, fuck, it's February. And then I realized it's because we are starting to scale now. You always think that, you know, the path is somewhat happening until you realize that it actually is. And we are actually now finally starting to scale. And with that comes different problems. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenging work. So in the end of the day, it's just hard work, but it's enjoying the ride somehow. And the second you pause and relax, so the second the cortisol level goes down, the flu will hit because the immune system will kick in, and then you realize like, oh fuck, haven't had time to be sick. So as soon as you relax a bit, you will get sick.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of Denise, I'm always curious how founding teams come together because, you know that when you're starting a company, you're setting out on this journey that's going to be multiple years.
Yes.
It's going to require a lot of hard work, a lot of challenges, conflict, trust is huge.
Yes.
So how did you and Denise decide that, hey, we should do this hard thing together?
Well, we used to work together before. So I used to be her boss back in the days, and before that I used to be her customer. And she was this, in those days she was young, and she's younger than me. So she was young and very ambitious and very driven. So like we done some psycho test, and she actually comes out with entrepreneur. She's from a very small portion of people that she's very entrepreneur minded. And very focused on delivering, getting shit done, and that's how we work together. And then when I left Crosskey, I said to her that someday we'll work together again. I didn't know when or why or how, but I just knew that someday, because I really like working with smart people who have the same level ambition, but aren't like me. Like different, and that's what we are. And then when this opportunity came, about building something that then would become Enfuce, she was the first one I called, and she was so fed up and bored where she was that when I called her, I remember it. I think it was like February 2016. I was like, hey, and I had left I resigned in October from Crosskey, and then in February I called her and said like, hey, should we? And she was like, yes, what? And I'm like, should we just build a company that does this better? Like better, faster and globally scalable? And she was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's how we started working. And of course it's been ups and downs, but the vision of where we need to take Enfuce, it's our baby in that sense. So even though we are not always, aligned and we don't every day love each other in that way, like it's a marriage, she's my work wifey. So it's always in the best interest of the company. That's what we talk about. Like every time it's like, what's best for the company? So it's a little bit like what's best for the children. Even though you might disagree, you need to align and then get it done.
I think that probably takes a certain maturity to have that kind of self-distance to actually be able to think like that, because a lot of people they've really struggled. I mean, also with their real children.
Yes.
They struggle not to live out through their own children.
Yes.
Like, how do you create that? How do you create that distance that you and Denise are both able to have constructive conflict, and then make decisions that are best for Enfuce, regardless of how you may personally feel about the decision or how it may impact you?
I think we have the destructive conflicts are in private, so we can get pissed off at each other but then everyone knows what's at stake, because in the end it's all about the company. So even if you're pissed off as fuck here and now, the other one we learned to understand how we work. So you know how to push. Don't push the button, and then you push it anyway. You're like, fuck, okay, and then you know the consequences, and that's what happened. But in the end, sometimes it is to trigger that pause, and sometimes it's just because like accidentally push the button, and then like, oh fuck, and then that comes. But we've always come out stronger. So I think again, that's been a good learning curve to understand that through these, ups and downs, we do come out stronger. And I think in the end it's because we are old grown-ups. I mean, like I have 4 children, she has 2 children. So it's life. Life teaches you it the hard way. And I think there was some statistics, there's shitloads of statistics, but I think the average successful founder is over 45.
Yeah, that's something that we don't really think or talk about enough, I find.
Yeah, because I remember when we started Enfuce and we were interviewed by someone, I don't remember, was it a Swedish newspaper, whatever, and they were like, you're so different. You are not 23-year-old guys, you are actually 40 plus female. What are you doing wrong? And we're like, or are we doing it the right way? So I think I also I'm not saying like a guy or a young guy couldn't succeed. Of course they can, but just understanding that it's not usual for a successful founder to be really young, and I think it correlates to experience.
Yeah, but you need to like have that. I guess as we grow older, we become comfortable. And we fall into this career trap, which is we're climb the ladder and we're deathly afraid of taking a few steps back and start something new. If it means we have to lower our title, lower our salary.
Yes, yeah. And that's a funny thing because if you look at my career, it doesn't make any sense that I become a founder, because I was a CIO in S-Bank. I was sitting in the management team. And then I was bored as fuck. So then I went to Crosskey, started building the card and mobile payment from scratch. Again, in the management team, wanted to scale, the owners didn't. And then I resigned. And as I have 4 children, I needed to pay mortgage. I took a job at Actia, but I already then said I'm just going to be a project. Like I'm going to figure out what I want to do next. So I'll do these things for money. And I think that if I would have wanted to stick around, I probably today would be in the management team, at least in the bank. But realizing that I've been there, done that, I want something bigger. And I do remember when I was handing in, like I drove a BMW, I had really good salary, blah, 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 blah. And then I founded Enfuce, and my husband bought me my first car, because I didn't have time. I really love cars. So he bought me a car, and he bought me a used Ford Fiesta. And I remember when I was driving it and the sun was shining, and that moment of happiness and freedom, that was really amazing, because I knew I was doing something that I wanted to be doing. So I think one of the biggest challenges for people is this mindset of how things should look like. Because when I resigned from Actia, or like I wasn't even hired because I was doing a project, and started Enfuce, my mother-in-law, she's born in the eastern part of Finland just after the war. She was like, oh my God, it's going to go bankrupt. Because that's like, oh my God, you have 4 children, you're leaving. But then what I've always said to everyone, like, if there's any country in the world where you should have the courage to be a founder or entrepreneur, it's Finland. Because nothing bad can really happen to you. Because we are such a socialist country that you don't even have to fucking work and we'll take care of you. Which means that if you put in the hours and you succeed, like for us, for example, we have 140 people, of which I think half are in Finland. So 70 people with families, etc., we enable work for them, and they are part of building Enfuce. And I think that's the awesomeness. I think in Finland we should much more focus on what if it succeeds? Because we have a lot of good examples. I'm really happy now with Miki Kuusi and Walt also, because we used to be so successful in the gaming. But now we start having, different kind of platform capabilities, and also now IceEye, etc., IQM, Gubbe. There's a lot of good stuff happening, and we should be much more as a nation like, wow, what if that succeeds, and enable that instead of this very Finnish thinking, it's going to go to shit and it's going to be embarrassing. Unless you're Swedish-speaking Finn. That's the only ones who are allowed to succeed, because by default, your type of minority are destined to succeed. And then as such, the rest of the Finns are destined to fail. And that's a narrative we need to change.
I think you're absolutely right about the being destined, because that's like what because it's always so comfortable to say, I knew it was going to fail, Yes. Saying that, and there's safety in that, and it probably has to do with the war and a lot of different factors.
Yes.
But it's very interesting, like you mentioned, Finland should be proof that it's not really the economic risk that people are afraid of, because like you said, we have this best social, or one of the best in the world, but still people are afraid, and probably big fear of failure, fear of judgment from people.
Fear of shame.
Shame.
Yeah. And shame can only come from one thing. It's if you give a shit about what other people think. So you only need 2 things to succeed. You need courage, and don't give a shit about what other people think. And then I think the third one, which is critical, don't be an asshole. So with these 3, don't be an asshole, don't give a shit about what other people think, and have the courage. That's the only thing you need to know or have when you start working, and the rest will come. Because the good thing is also, we Finns, we like to help. So if you ask for help or advice, you will get it.
Yeah.
So you only have to have the courage to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Someone said something similar about it's a superpower. The ability to look like an idiot is a superpower. Yeah,
and then I agree, and I understand what you mean. But I think again here, who's the idiot? So it's again the perspective, and for me especially, I really want to change the language of how we talk about success. I don't like the Finnish word for entrepreneur. because it means trying. Yrittäjä. We're not fucking trying, we're doing. So could it be tekijä? Doer. Because in English it's entrepreneur and in Swedish it's företagare. It has nothing to do with trying. We're not trying, we're doing. So again, how we talk about stuff, I think it's our biggest challenge as a nation.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something. So going back to kind of the early days, you mentioned now you have 140 employees. What was it like building out the team in the beginning? And obviously, I mean, you have a high ambition level, which means you want to attract the best employees.
Yeah.
Best employees, by definition, have options. They probably have good salaries elsewhere. So how did you go about attracting that top talent in the beginning when it was, well, you were unproven as a company?
It's the vision and the mission. It is like, you need to find people who know really well stuff, meaning like they bring something to the table, and they need to be the people that don't do it for the money. And it's a very hard thing to find.
Yeah.
But it's around finding the people whose ambition level, who wants to change stuff, who wants to make something better or bigger or fix something harder. So I think those are the things that are important, which means that the purpose, the reason why you're doing it has to be such that it I think the word inspires is sometimes used a bit too fluffy, but in Finnish when vituttaa, so like when you're like fucking hell, there has to be like eyes on the prize. What is the prize? Why are we doing this? What are we changing? And I think one story that has been really important for the identity of Enfuce was when Russia invaded Ukraine, and 1 month in to the war, we got an email. It was a Thursday morning. Denise came to me and she said like, hey, we got an email from Visa Europe that Visa US had asked on behalf of UNICEF, could we enable the disbursement of cards with money to the refugees? So people had started fleeing, so women and children were fleeing Ukraine, and they needed, because they just left, so they needed, the banks didn't work and etc. They needed to get the support funds. And we were like, of course, let's look at it. And I remember we were sitting on the Thursday morning, and in the Thursday afternoon, we were like, yeah, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it for free. And then we were like, okay, but we need plastic cards, and we need money, and we need shitloads of stuff. So we were like, okay, took the team, sat down and said, this is what we need to do, and we need to do it fast. It usually takes around 3 to 6 to 8 months to do these things. So we sat down and called some phone calls, or many phone calls, and in the end, and did a lot of stuff during the weekend. And in the end, on Monday morning, we informed that yes, we're gonna have the physical plastic cards at the blue points, which are the refugee points for example in Poland, where the refugees came, that you can distribute the cards with the funds. So during the weekend, we had started raising funds to the card. We had received donations, the plastic from a card manufacturer. We had done all the technical infrastructure, legal stuff. We had done the compliance review. We had written the terms and conditions on how to use the card in English and Ukrainian. Everything was fucking ready to go on Monday. And on Wednesday, the cards would be there. And then UNICEF said no. And it was because there was no one who had ever been able to do it at that speed. And we did a world record there again. And we did it just because what we do in normal life is something we know how to. And I think that's been a story of success. Of course, today we help with different disbursement cards in multiple locations in Europe. But that was really something that proved to us that when we do the things we do, the way we do it, when it really matters, we can get it done. And I really get goosebumps now. I mean, like, and I didn't do much. But, you know, when you get that, and you get that, like, now let's fucking do it, and how much it mattered. People can do amazing things.
And that must be, like, as a founder and CEO, co-CEO, that must be one of the most energizing things, is seeing the team that you've assembled come together and move very quickly. That to me is like one of the most impressive metrics is always speed in any organization. If you can do something, bring something to market, like in the half time or in 1/10 of the time, it's always like you know. I'm always impressed by that. One other maybe kind of similar, but maybe another pivotal moment was the Apple Pay.
Yeah.
When we brought that to, can you talk about what happened there?
Yeah,
you guys were the first together, or like in not in collaboration with Nordea, or at the same time?
No, at the same time. Yeah, that was a funny thing. So in 2016, we were going cloud. I know Apple has started to come out. I don't remember when they started coming out to the market, 2014 or whatever. And they had reached out to banks who would be the first to issue Apple Pay. And I think we had just gotten contactors working really well in Finland and stuff like that. And we were doing for ST1 consumer revolving credits in Sweden, Finland and Norway, and revolving credit cards. And we were just about to go live, or the aim was that we would go live with that product in 3 countries, 3 currencies, 2 time zones in June 2017. And then it was April. It was some Jesus holiday. I don't remember, Kristi himmelfärdsdag or whatever. So, the CEO of ST1 Nordic at that point, Kim Vio, he called me and said, "Hey Monika, can you come to the office on Thursday?" I said, "Yeah, sure." It was a bank holiday. I was like, "Yeah, sure. What is it?" "Yeah, well, Apple is going to be present." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I went there and they were like, "Yeah, Apple is coming to the Nordics. And we want to be part of that launch." And we haven't even launched yet the actual product. And I was like, "Cool, of course." So when is this happening? And then Apple guy was like, "Yeah, you need to be ready by mid-September because the launch is going to be in," I think it was like mid-October. And I was like, "What do you mean with ready?" "Yeah, well, the app has to be certified, you know, at a lab and the use case, because they are really anal about how it works and flows and everything." And I was like, "Yeah, but that's shitloads of time, like May, June, July." And then I was like, "Yeah, sure, we'll do it." We went back to the team, and I think we were like 12, 13 people at that time. And I called MasterCard, and I was like, "Hey, we need to do this tokenization. So we need to make that account number into a token so we can then provision it into Apple Pay. And all the authentication and everything. How long does that usually take?" And they were like, "Yeah, it's around 11 months. And I was like, "Yeah, we'll do it. But we don't have that much time." And I remember every time everyone asked, like, "What did you do summer of 2017? And I was like, "I don't remember." And they're like, "We did Apple Pay." And that's what we did. And I remember when we launched in October, and we started at 5 in the morning. I picked up my co-founder Niklas from Forenom in Leppävaara. So this, because we were really poor back then. So we Denise used to live at my place until my husband was like, "For fuck's sake, can you please start making some money so she can go and sleep somewhere else?" The problem was that she started always exercising really early in the morning, and everyone was like, "For fuck's sake." But then I picked up Niklas at 5 in the morning. We drove to the ST1 office, did all the prep work. And then when it launched in the Nordics, and the only other who launched was Nordea. And everyone was like, "Who the fuck is ST1? And then I remember when someone was like, "This is amazing. You can actually apply. So without having anything, you can download the ST1 app, apply for a credit of 5,000 or 3,000 euros, do the whole onboarding, the credit scoring, get the car, like get it accepted, provision it to Apple Pay, and go and pay immediately. And anything from not having anything to paying a high value payment in less than 3 minutes. And then I was like, fuck, that's amazing, actually. Hadn't thought about it at all. And that's when the phone started ringing.
Did that have like a meaningful impact in the trajectory of the company?
Massive.
What was the biggest impact? Was it inbound?
Yes, that's when the inbound started. And I remember when I was in some, I think a couple of weeks later, I was at some event, and then one of the big banks in Finland with the orange logo called. I was, oh fuck, they're trying to sell me some insurances. I was like, oh God. And they were like, Monika. I was, yeah. This Apple Pay thing. How many are you? We're 15, but that's not possible. I was like, but yet it works. And and I think they launched Apple Pay 7 years later or 3, I don't remember, but I think it was S-Bank who launched it 7 years later. But anyway, OP, I think it took 3-4 years. So we really tried to say to them that we could help them, but their procurement process was a bit different. So
yeah. I think people don't realize how much actually quicker a smaller team aligned and committed can work versus a big company.
Yes.
It's or a big organization.
Yes.
It's massive.
Yeah. And I think in the big organizations, it's always all about the people.
Yes.
So if you can find the structure of this is what we need to get done, and these are the skills we need to get it done, then you will. So if you look at Apple, how they launch products, it's very small teams in the end of the day. Because it's like having that understanding that you need to have a lot of people when you like run the engine, but when you need to get certain things done, you need to bring in the competencies, and then you need to make it business as usual. So of course, one of the key challenges is when you have things in production that you don't fuck it up, meaning when you build new stuff, you need to have really understanding of the complexity you already have and how you deploy it, how you test it, etc.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're now starting to scale.
Yes.
But the public numbers from 2023 was like 12 million in revenue or something like that.
Yeah. So we hit now in 20 million, and to this year we are projected to grow around 55-60%.
Okay, wow. So you already reached a level that's very, very significant, and now growing at.
Yeah, now we're starting. Yeah, and I'm really for me, it's like fucking hell. In my life, we should be already over 100 million.
Yeah.
So we're really
behind.
Shit. Yeah. So I'm really disappointed. But I think that's also one of the key items. The day I'm satisfied is probably the day something is going really wrong, or I'm just bored out of my head, because I think there has to be this level of
Yes.
not being okay with where we are, because you don't push yourself.
Yes.
But definitely from a numbers game, it's been slow because of the compliance. But now we have built the foundation. We have said no to a lot of things. Like if I would have done it for the money, where I can see some of our competitors, the challenger ones, they have gone to shit because of money laundering. And how do you do money laundering? Well, you enable gambling, adult entertainment, and shit like that. We are really focused on fighting human trafficking, money laundering, terrorist financing. And that's why we land now banks, states, governments.
There's been some, I don't know if it was Wirecard, did they do similar things?
Yeah, that was just a fucking, scam.
Have you read the book? I think it's called Money Men.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yes, I lived. I watched it.
Yeah. You saw. Did you?
No, I lived it. Cause I didn't like. It's funny because remember, if you look at the guys at Wirecard, and then you take out the fact that they are fucking fraudsters, but just the background is very similar than me. Telco, payment, then going in. But the thing was that was just a scam. But I remember, I think it was 2019, June, when they collapsed. It was a month, because I just remember that we had one of our sales guys. He was pretty new, so just out of school, and it was him and me. like the rest were on vacation. There wasn't so many of us back in those days. And then Wirecard started collapsing. And what happened was that the card stopped working. So the Finnish company like Holvi, their card stops working.
Oh, they were using...
Yeah, they had Wirecard. So they were running on Wirecard. So Wirecard was exactly like us.
Yeah.
But like...
Fraud.
Yeah, fraud, but much bigger also. So it was like the amount of phone calls that came then was massive. But you were like, I can't help you. Because infrastructure migration isn't that easy. But we also have the licenses. But it was an interesting... It was an interesting thing.
Just sort of, and for people who don't know, I mean, Wirecard was this big. I mean, they were like almost a 30 billion euro market cap at some point.
They were over 30.
Over 30.
Yes. Yeah.
And part of like the DAX 30, I think, index.
Yes, they were bigger than Deutsche Bank.
And like, so massive, like they had the stamp of approval from like all these big institutions.
Yeah. So so they were sanctioned by the German Financial Supervisory Authority. And I always said that we chose to go with the Finnish one, of course, because we're Finns. And as a Finns, we're really compliant. And that's been a really good thing. So I do think that the Finnish Supervisory Authority, FSA, their reputation skyrocketed as a consequence of Buffin really going to shit.
Yeah, it was just kind of out of curiosity. Did you, because you were, you were doing the same thing. You were following probably their journey pretty closely, and a lot of people who obviously did not know the industry were completely fooled, including like big accounting firms and all that.
Yes.
But did you kind of have any question marks, anything that stood out, or how closely were you paying attention to what was going on in Germany?
We had a couple of customers that were leaving Wirecard for us already before they collapsed. So of course we understood the infrastructure, that wasn't very, sophisticated, but they were born out of prepay card, so like pre-funded, so pretty simplistic. But we were like, I was impressed by them because I couldn't, like naive as I were, I didn't think that it was such a bluff in that scale.
Yeah.
So that was an interest. But then we've seen others. There's been other players that have had similar things, and that's also why the UK Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, has become much stricter, and we're also licensed there. So I really like that notion of, using compliance as an enabler. I think many are like, okay, let's find a way to not comply. Let's find a way to do the business as long as possible without complying. Then, of course, I do also think that there's too much regulation. I was part of the European banking authorities, central banks meeting, and the Fintech industry was represented, and we were having the dialogue around the regulatory landscape. And because of these Wirecard scandals, etc., I think we are too afraid. So we are afraid of trying stuff, and as such, we are regulating stuff so much that we're actually killing innovation, and I think that's not a good thing. So, one of the challenges is the lack of collaboration. I know that the countries collaborate, but if you look at Europe, there's a lot of different cultures, background, ways of being, and that is a bit of a challenge. It could also be a strength, but currently we are not capable yet of materializing that as a positive. It's more negative.
But like you said, it puts Enfuce in a good position. You've taken these years, even though it's moved too slowly for you, but you built the foundation.
Yes.
So what does then scale and growth look like now? Is it just like growing into different segments or different markets or different services?
Growing in volume. So for me personally, and of course with Denise, we talked a lot about this, and for us, it's becoming number one. I'm very competitive. So for me, like sports metaphors make sense. I want to win the Olympics. And you can't win Olympics. You need to choose the Olympic sport. So we are really focusing on the banking side and then lending side. And anything and everything that evolves around it. But like really focusing on being the best in the world in those, and then becoming number one in Europe. both in market size and brand value and reputation. And that will then enable us to do whatever we want. So I always said I don't want to be anyone's bitch. I want to be able to decide. But for now, the focus is Europe. But we're also going to Brazil with one customer. And it's a good business. It's a good opportunity. And it also showcases that our platform, the infrastructure, is globally scalable.
Yeah.
But then where we decide to compete and win, it's Europe for now. So for Nexi, Tieto Every, we're coming for you.
But that's exciting. I mean, that's a huge vision in and of itself, because Europe is a big market. I'm kind of curious because I know very little about fintech,
Yep.
Almost as little as anyone.
Yep.
But I read about, so I was doing research obviously, and I read about the kind of, maybe it was the latest partnership that you announced with SEB.
Yes.
You built the branded loyalty card for Hemköp, the grocery
Yes.
chain in Sweden.
Yep.
And it just got me thinking, like, what is the future of like this? Maybe you call it embedded finance.
Yep.
What does that look like? Are retailers and a bunch of different other players going to start offering these types of services in order to kind of get customer data to create more lock-in? And like, what do you think is going to happen? Is that going to be like a thing going forward? Everyone's going to start offering cards and similar services?
I think the cards is more about a way to pay. And as long as you need to pay for something you're buying, you're going to need a way to pay for it. And from my perspective, what we're focusing is on where goods and people move, because their payments needs to go. And it's not as subject to the turmoil in the world. So if we think about Hemköp, I do think that one of the key learnings was that I was part of building S-Bank in S-Group. So S-Group is the biggest merchant chain in Finland. They have 43% market share. They have everything from funeral parlors, hotels, gas stations, restaurants, food stores. So if you take that and then you think about what is the most successful loyalty program in Finland, that's the S-Group's loyalty program. And what they have been able to do is exactly what we can see is happening more and more. So giving that individual human being value so that they will choose that payment method to get that service. And we can see that increasing now in mobility, for example. So people who are like building energy charging stations, they want to issue cards because they want their energy station, of course, to the customers to be able to pay with any card. But if you pay with their own card, they get better data, they can build loyalty, they can issue credit, etc., etc. So yes, I do think the card payments will grow, and I think it's a good thing because as long as we pay with cash, that's a problem because cash, just from its physical appearance, it is very dirty. But in the end of the day, you can't track it. So a lot of bad stuff is done with cash. So we can see definitely players like Hemköp type of programs becoming more and more. I think that's a good thing.
Just on topic of cash, what's the percentage, like, off the top of your head, kind of like in Finland, in Europe, is it still a significant portion of like?
Yes, in Europe. Yes.
In Europe.
Yeah. I don't think in the Nordics we are much closer to, I wouldn't say cashless, but less cash society.
Yeah.
But definitely as soon as you go to Europe, it's much more cash still. It's a culture, it's the infrastructure. And also in Europe, there's a lot of people who don't have banking. They are like non-banks still. A lot of people have a hard time getting. Yeah, even though we have this payment account directive in Europe that you need to, if you are a European citizen, a bank needs to give you an account. But then to actually give them the card to the account, and then remember, there's a lot of workers in Europe that are non-European. They are often outside of the financial system. And that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Interesting. So we're almost out of time.
Yes.
So I ask one final question for you here. You mentioned we're well, now we're recording this in the beginning of April. You mentioned already in February you were like, this is a horrible year. But so like where you are right now with Enfuce and where the market is, like what are the things that you're most excited about, and maybe what are the things that you're kind of most concerned or worried about?
Yeah, I think the reason why I'm coming out of the flu is exactly because the beginning of the year was horrible, but now I'm really excited, and hence when you're excited, the stress level goes down, the cortisol goes down, the immune kicks in, and that's when you get sick. So don't have less stress. It's not good for you. I'm excited about a lot of things. I think as a company, we are finally in a position where when we come out with the customers that we've been working with now for the past 6-8 months, it's going to showcase that there is a shift. And that's why I like, for us, what has happened is that as we go for the bigger players, the lead times takes longer, which means that I pretty well know what this year will look like. So the only thing we need to do is not to fuck it up. So that's my biggest concern. Like, let's not fuck this up. Of course, from a geopolitical perspective, the world is on fire. I think that's one of the key challenges. And what we try to be somehow is this beacon of hope. I mean, like, we can't give up. We can't give up. And like, I have 4 children. Like, for fuck's sake, this somewhere something better has to come out of it. Us humans can't be this stupid that we tolerate this way of being where people, it's okay to lie, behave bad, have wars. It's insane. Like, less men, more women into power, and less like, give me a woman who started a war. Like, seriously. Anyway, so that's what we are looking for, to bring some change in the world, and really onboarding players that by their services makes a better impact. That's what I'm excited. And of course, going for me now, the focus is on the 250 million. So 250 million in annual recurring revenue, that's my next milestone in my head. So fuck the 100, and we are at 20, so we need to like speed it up.
But with exponential growth, I mean, that's gonna.
Like,
it's
I have
crazy
have a personal target that we're gonna hit 10 billion, and it's not that hard. If we get to 100% growth and we systematically do it for X years, it's just math.
I love that, because that's one thing that kind of stood out as I was doing research and looking at your website, and one of your values is excellence.
Yes.
And I think what you embody, and then as a result of that, what Enfuce embodies, is really this pursuit of excellence, which is not very common in Finland. And that is, that means like setting really ambitious targets, vocalizing them publicly, committing yourself to it, which is very uncommon in Finland, and it's something that we need more of.
Yeah, and that's the cultural thing.
Yes.
Because that's the thing that, like, if I have had it since, I don't know how young, but like, reach for the moon and you might get to the stars or whatever, or clouds or whatever. But in the end, set that really big ass ambitious goal, because what happens when you have small goals is you make small decisions, and you need to make big decisions. You need to take, some call it risk, but that's life. So I do believe in setting big ass goals, and when you talk about it, and you set yourself up for ridicule, like ha, you won't give up, because you're like, fuck you, I'm not giving up. Like, that's like, so 10 billion, like, you need to have a number that like really makes sense, because it's not about reaching it. Yeah. It's about never giving up and doing it better. So yeah, I really hope that if something I can give to my own children is the value of hard work. And who wants to be mediocre? That's fucking boring. Mediocrity and average, boring.
I hope we get more of that kind of attitude of like pursuing excellence. So I wish you and the team best of luck.
So
I hope you guys succeed.
Thank you.
I'm sure you will. And it's going to be really exciting to follow you, because, like I said, I don't understand Fintech, but I understand kind of like what it takes to the struggles and you know the kind of human side of building a company like that and pursuing something excellent, and I respect that. So
Thank you
wish you
very
guys the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. You can find all episodes of The Growth Pod on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.